Hello and welcome back to another episode of Power Rangers Lore. Today we're going to talk about none other than the Morphing Masters. Now, that is not a name that rings a bell too many times in people's heads because they're not really known much about. They are first mentioned in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers as guardians of some ancient device, and they were just that. We don't even know what the device actually did, but that was it. And they remained a mystery up until recently. Now, the comics and also the TV series of Dino Fury has really decided to expand on that universal question of what and who are the Morphing Masters. Now, let's go in depth about who they are. The Morphing Masters have many questions left behind by them. Now, who are they? What are they? And how long have they been around for? Now, in the Wikipedia page for Morphing Masters, they're considered a group. They're not even considered a race. We're not. That's how much information we have. We have no idea. We've only seen a limited amount of them, and we are getting little fragments as time releases about who and what they are. Now, we first learned about them in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, basically Zordon saying about the eggs of power. And let me ask you a question. Do you know what the eggs of power are? Don't worry, they're not really much of anything besides like an artifact of the episode. Basically, don't let Rita Repulsa get her hands on them or there'll be great evil afoot. Well, what they do, we have no idea. They were just locked away and forgotten in an ocean. Rita found them and the Rangers destroyed them. We have no idea what they do beyond that, but that was our first introduction of like one of the artifacts. Now, it's specified basically in the episode that the Morphing Masters are gone at that time period. We have no idea why, what happened to them. They were just gone. Now, what we've learned more of is they are responsible for creation of many different artifacts besides the Eggs of Power. Let me make sure that is the Eggs of Power is what they're really called. I'm sorry, they're the Power Eggs. That's it. So, see how my confusion is there. They use power a lot in Mighty Morphin for every type of weapon they possibly could, such as the Sword of Power, the Power Sword, the Power Axe, the Power things. So forgive my misrepresentation of the Power Eggs. Now, let's talk about some of the other items they created. We know the biggest thing that they are responsible for is the Ninja Nexus Prism, which is the empowerment, basically gave the powers of the Ninja Steel Power Rangers their powers. It is also semi-sentient and has a mind of its own. Like it doesn't talk to people per se, but it can basically play charades, or you can connect with it on an emotional or psychic level, and it's come to understand it somewhat. Now, it has created new Ranger devices, morphers, Zords, all that type of stuff, and now has a bigger role to play rather than just the series. Usually, if it's a device that's just created for the series alone, you never see it again unless it's like a little Easter egg shown later on, or basically going, oh, yeah, we use this device to do something else now, or they use it to transform again into the Rangers again, though it's not really explained how or why. If they lost their powers already, how will they get the connection back? Well, the Ninja Nexus Prism is floating around space doing something. We're not quite sure what it is, but it's just flying around, just doing things. Now, it is also apparently another artifact that was built by essentially the Morphing Masters was the Dino Gems. Yes, the Dino Gems from Dino Thunder. I had to make sure that is. I had to look, just doing some research, and I missed apparently the part in the episode where they were talking about all the different things that they created. So we know for certain that the Dino Gems now were created by the Morphing Masters. Now, a lot of people love Dino Thunder, and I didn't think that the Morphing Masters had anything to do with those gems. I thought they were just meteorites, that parts of the meteor that fell, and they were just the crystalline constructs that just absorbed bits of the morphing grid and had Dino DNA in them. Apparently not. They were essentially created by, I think it's stated by the red Morphing Master, but I gotta check that again. I just saw it in one article really quickly and I was really confused. Now, also the last thing that connected for the Rangers would be the Energems from Dino Charge. Now, that is, I can easily see that they were given by the Keeper, and the Keeper is basically protecting them all, but we don't know for certain exactly what connection they had. That is a different universe, so it could be a different form of morphing masters. So it gets more complicated of who they are because it changes per universe because everything is different. Even in the comic universe, we see a living morphing master. They're not immortal; they're just very long lived, mind you. But he was corrupted and nearly destroyed several different rangers that had found him, and it gets more complex with his history. So they're still alive in that universe, and he split off from the entire universe to create a pocket dimension, essentially, known as the Void. They are very powerful and very destructive, as it can see in the comic, but we don't know what else they do. Now, the biggest thing, their major interference they had was when the Sporix beast from the new series of Dino Fury had first arrived on Earth. They basically were chased after by the Knights of Rafkon and fought them on Earth after first fighting them on their own planet, and basically their planet was nearly destroyed. Now the Knights of Rafkon would nearly get destroyed again, but the dinosaurs of that time period somehow they're semi-sentient there, but I'm not going to argue with this because it's Power Rangers lore and we don't really care too much. But the dinosaurs allied with the Knights of Rafkon, and the Knights of Rafkon can talk to somebody on a mental level, so basically they can talk to them and express feelings in different ways. So it's possible that the guys are going like, well, my food will be gone if these guys kill everything. So yeah, sure, we'll help you out. And they basically had them riding on dinosaurs, but they weren't Power Rangers yet. Then at the darkest hour, the Morphing Masters emerged from a portal and gathered them all up, the dinosaurs and the Knights of Ravcon, and empowered them. Now they turned the dinosaurs into Zords. I don't think they gave them an option, but they just did it. So essentially, they became mechanical Zords immediately, and the Rangers, the Knights of Ravcon, became Rangers. Now, the last battle, nearly everyone died sealing them away, except for the Red Ranger, who was put in stasis. But it was a good little battle there. And with this power, they were able to seal away the Spark Beasts back into their egg forms, and that was it. Now, people are going to ask, are the power coins created by the Morphing Masters? No, those were created by Ninjor, who is not a Morphing Master, but he had books of the Morphing Master in his temple, basically, which may have explained how to create them or connection to create devices or artifacts to connect to the Morphing Grid. And that was the major information we have now on how basically the Morphing Masters affected the cinematic TV universe. Now, in the comic books, things change. Now, I don't guarantee this for certain, but they basically saying the Emissaries are the Morphing Masters. I want to say the Emissaries are the Emissaries. They're not the Morphing Masters. They basically just have their memories and stuff like that. Because we see the Emissaries also in the main series of Power Rangers itself, in Mystic Force, and a few other kind of series, like hinting at them here and there. And I want to say they are just basically the last remnants of them, like lesser students or a lesser race that was connected to them in some manner, or maybe they ascended into what is the Emissaries. I'm not for certain going to say that for certain, and I was a bad speaking, but I don't care. But we know that in the comic books there is the Emissaries, and then there's kind of the Morphing Masters, so it gets complicated. They are a separate universe, know that, so it could be the same thing, but I don't think so. They would have, I think the writers behind that would have said differently entirely. We'll see as time goes on, because we're about to get some more information on the Emissaries in the next couple of books, but here we go. Also, the Morphing Masters in the books study the Morphing Grid, which we kind of knew that they studied in the TV series, but it's not really shown them studying. They know that they are responsible for many things. They discovered a planet of Zeo crystals. Yes, a planet of them. Now, that would be basically more complicated. How do you find a planet of Zeo crystals? Well, apparently you do. And so at the time, the Praetor, who is a Morphing Master, and his Solar Rangers severed that from the universe, essentially severed that universe from the Morphing Grid to protect it, also known as the Splintered Star, from evil, with the Stormtroopers able to help to drain the last of the morphing energy from the planet to keep it safe enough to rejoin. Now, There was so much radiation coming out of that thing. It was like a nuclear bomb, or like a billion nuclear bombs. Now, as to what exactly it did, we have no idea why it was so feared. Well, it is basically made entirely up of raw Zeo crystals, which can access the morphing grid. But we don't know what they were afraid of and who they were afraid of, like, getting this. It's not really specified. But it does, over time, corrupt the Praetor, who goes from a noble morphing master to a kind of egomaniac. I'm the only one who knows how to protect this, and nobody else. So essentially, like, he just went crazy and insane and killed his own other the morphing rangers of the Solar Rangers. So that's just one thing. Now there's a few other little hints of morphing masters currently going on. The current narrator for the series and also for another series, I believe he was the voice of, yes. So the morphing sorry, the narrator for Ninja Steel, as well as Super Dino Charge and Dino Fury, are all voiced by the same dude who is technically known as the Red Morphing Master. We don't have we've only seen a picture of him, but that's it. But he's apparently the narrator of the series is a Morphing Master. How? So does that mean that unless they can see into the future, which they basically said the future isn't set, it can change constantly through SPD and a few other things. I think this Morphing Master is either still alive or watching, or some of the Morphing Masters are still alive, and he's just basically doing what a bit of the Watcher's point of view from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, where they just sit and watch and they don't interfere. I think he will interfere. I think something big is going to happen where he's forced to interfere in some ways. So we'll see what happens in the future. But that is just a little thing here and there for the Morphing Masters and little intriguing little pictures going on there. Now, the Morphing Masters have many different abilities, and we're going to talk about those right now. I already mentioned their ability to open portals. We don't know where those portals go or where they're from, but apparently they just know things and can teleport across the galaxy if need be, or through another dimension. Maybe they're from another dimension entirely, and they're just trying to seed planets, essentially with the morphing energy to help protect them against the forces of darkness. We don't know. They don't walk. They kind of just levitate. It's kind of weird. It's like a nun just like slowly walking towards you, but not moving her legs, just like floating towards you. They are, again, not immortal, but they have a very long lifespan. Now, the Morphing Masters first appeared on Earth 65 million years ago, during the time of the dinosaurs, and then would appear apparently during Big Sisters, which is the Power Eggs episode. We're not sure exactly what time period that is, but that was way after the Earth and the dinosaurs had been killed. We know about nothing else currently, and when they disappeared exactly. We know that the morphing masters, a lot of their technology was just left out there, and that's currently it. We don't know anything else beyond that. They just left a bunch of artifacts. The Phantom Ranger in the comics is basically worked with them at one point, but we don't know in what detail. Was he created by them, or is he being sustained by, helped to be basically live forever through the morphing grid energy expelling out in the universe? We don't know for certain, but we know that he has some connection to the Morphing Masters. Now, there's also some theories going around too that they were behind the creation of the Quasar Sabers and possibly the Zeo Crystal. Now, it'd make more sense, instead of just finding a planet made of Zeo Crystal, that they accidentally converted the planet into a giant Zeo Crystal, and that was not their intention. So it's basically one of their failures. But the Quasar Sabers make sense, because they're just stabbed in a stone and there's a prophecy, but that's it. Now, the prophecy would make sense that the Morphing Masters, being a little bit more knowing the future and basically observing things, they go, well, this could possibly happen. We need these noble heroes to come forth. So there we goes there. Now, the Zeo Crystal itself, we don't know much more about it. We'll probably get more. We're getting more in bits about the future, but it's hinted in the comic books, which is a separate universe, mind you. But it's hinted in the comic books that the Zeo Crystal was just a normal crystal that the legendary hero Zeon grabbed and when he didn't have another weapon, and stabbed it into a Chaos Demon 3-headed dragon who was eating the Morphin Grid. And when he stabbed it into it, he killed the beast by unleashing the power up inside of it, and it basically, all the energy went into it and out, so it killed the beast entirely, and it was basically a radioactive morphing crystal, essentially, at that point. Now, that's all we know so far about that, and that's it. We don't know if the Xeon character is a morphic master or not, but it's just a fairy tale myth, as they call it in the comics. Now, that's essentially all we need, all we know currently right now, and there'll be definitely updates in the future for the morphing masters, so make sure to keep tuned with that. Thank you guys for joining us, and I hope you have a good one. Now I'll leave you with one more question before we leave. Do you want to see a good morphing masters or the bad morphing masters, or what do you want to see for them? Because I want to see a lot. Thank you guys.